welcome back to my channel. I have a book haul for you today, which are books that I received for Christmas, bought for myself, and yeah, I think that's basically it. So why not just get started right away? I think I'm going to start with the books I've already read. The first one being it was my first read of 2019, and it also was an instant 5-star read, so that was an amazing reading year start, you know what I mean. I'm talking about Michelle Obama's Becoming, her memoir, her autobiography. Basically, she recounts her life from she was a child and grew up in Chicago till she became first wife of the United States. And we also hear a little bit about what it's like afterwards, now that she is no longer the first lady. As I said, I loved it. I didn't expect for her to be that good of a writer. She is poetic in her language. She's good at reflecting on things and not making it too overpowering in any way. It was just beautiful and I was impressed. The same goes for the next book actually, which took me away by storm, and I gave it 5 stars, and I'm talking about A Letter to the Sky by John Boyne. So last year I read his The Heart's Invisible Furies, and it was one of my favorite books of last year. So I wanted to continue reading him, and this one really surprised me because it's very different from any book I've ever read. And I just really loved it, the way it was narrated, the way the story was constructed, and just the plot in general. It's about this young man who has a desire to become an author, and he has no guilt, no conscience when it comes to getting there. He uses people, he uses situations to get his way, and it becomes very horrifying but also very fascinating. Then I have this one, Rules of Civility by Emil Towles, another book that I was curious to read because I read another book by the author called A Gentleman in Moscow. Really like that one. You will hear more about my thoughts on this book in my upcoming reading vlog, but let's just say for now that it's set in New York City during the 1930s, and it's very much about growing up and becoming your own independent self, being surrounded by people that really have an impact on you but that might disappear all of a sudden. And the book I'm currently reading is another one I got pretty recently, and that is 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty, who also wrote Big Little Lies. I'm still on the fence about this book. I mean, I'm not very much into it, meaning that I am very much into it. I'm more than halfway through it, but emotionally I'm not that invested, so we will have to see if this is a book I will actually finish. It's about these 9 people who are gathered in an institution for well-being and trying to find yourself again. That's all I'm going to say, and I guess I will let you know at some point in the future whether I finish it or not. Let's move on to the books I haven't yet read. The first one being the last 2 books in the Tanner French series, which I have been reading over the past year. So I think this is the 5th book, The Secret Place and then The Trespasser. You know, I love this series. I'm surprised that I like it as much as I do because it is a crime series, but it's also very much about the characters and their development, and that's what got me invested. And then I finally decided to actually get Pachinko by Min-Chin Lee. I've been on the fence about actually wanting to read it for a while now, but I thought to myself, I don't know what I thought. I just thought that I kind of wanted to read it, and I really loved this cover, so I was being superficial. I bought it. I really hope I'm going to like it. It seems to be a lot of people's, favorite book. I'm not sure that's it, but it seems that a lot of people really love it. It's set in Asia, somewhere in Japan, and it's a book of generations and family, and that's all I really know. But I do have high hopes for this one. Then we have another non-fiction which I'm very curious about, and that is Small Fry by Lisa Brennan Jobs, the daughter or the stepdaughter, I think, of Steve Jobs. So this is basically her memoir on what it was like to grow up with Steve Jobs, who is now dead, but also who she is and how she became a woman. I think that's what it's about. So yeah, I was just curious to read this one, and I do love my non-fiction, so this was one I knew I kind of wanted to read right away. And then we got the book that is the most exciting book of the bunch, I think, because this is the one book that I told you in my 2019 New Year's resolutions video that I knew I was going to read this year. I only put one book on the list, and that was this one. So I am obviously talking about Normal People by Sally Rooney. I finally have it. I was so eager to get started right away when I received it, but I did read another book at the point, the one I'm still currently reading. And now I'm just going to wait and savor it for a little bit and then have something to look forward to. I will say I was pretty surprised that it was such a short book, but nevertheless, here we have it. I don't know too much about it, but I did read Sally Rooney's Conversations with Friends last year, and it was a slow-going book that I kind of liked when I read it, but it's not until after I finished it, and it's been some months, that I really began to appreciate that story. And I kind of fell very much in love with it, because I love how Sally Rooney writes about everyday life and people that are flawed and that we can all relate to. This one is one I have super high hopes for. Another non-fiction book is one that I stumbled upon, I think, on Instagram, and I thought to myself, this looks really interesting, and that is How The Reading Cure, How Books Restored My Appetite by Laura Freeman. It's basically a book about a woman who used to be anorexic, and then the way back from that disease was to read books that described food and made her want to eat again and regain her appetite. So she basically describes this journey of how she was anorexic and then how she regained control of herself and her appetite through reading about delicious food in literature. I think this sounds so interesting, so I knew I had to get it, and here we have it, and also quite a gorgeous cover. The last book is going to be a new author to me. It is kind of a thriller, I think, or a mystery. I think it's more of a thriller, and that is Lisa Jewell's Watching You. I don't know too much about it. I mean, it must be about someone who is watching another person, but what is going to happen is going to be interesting to see, because it is after all a thriller, so I don't want to know too much beforehand. But I am interested to dive into this author and see what she's all about. I think she's pretty popular and she has quite a few books out, so I'm going to start here and hopefully like it. And that is it for my book haul. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books and would like for me to know about your feelings on them without spoiling them, of course. Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.